Today's story is from Infinitium Vortex. Director said, process contracts faster and don't fuss over details. Okay, you'll lose bonus. Initially had this story in RR malicious compliance, but came across this subreddit through comments. I work with a federal contractor, responsible to buy or bundle hardware, software, etc. any government organisation needs and review the contract in terms of financial viability and legal clauses. In other words, ensure we make money and we are legally covered. The contracts range from 5K to 40 mailers last year. Our company went through a reorganisation, i.e. fire people, and give more work to people still left with the company while paying us peanuts. We are a small company with less than 200 employees and trying to retain our government customers, while big companies like Amazon Cloud will replace us in less than 10 years. The government customers love working with us because this is the only thing we do and treat the customers better than big contractors who don't care. They laid off 30 people from my team of 50. So now, 20 people do the work for 50 people at the same salary. We are paid by the month and not work hours, and we don't get sales bonuses, important in the story. I have a habit of reviewing everything carefully and spending hours on each contract, even one that just makes us a few $1,000s. Government vendor selection process is slow and they are very risk averse, so a lot of customers start at a few $1,000s and end up in an 8 or 9 figure contract if everything goes well. Since people were laid off, I was struggling with the work volume, and as a result, contracts were piling up. The sales director, i.e. different team, did not like me as I was slow, and also catching any tricks the sales team tried to play by over-promising the customer or something shady. Government clients, just customers, loved working with me, the support I provided, and was truthful regarding our capability and our drawbacks. This was something else the director hated me for, since he thought I am tanking sales. However, almost all my clients were repeating customers for over a decade. Example: sales wanted a school district to buy outdated Dell Windows laptops while entire state was moving towards new, cheaper Chromebooks. Schools don't have budget, and whatever they buy stays for 5+ years. Sales were offloading expensive, useless stuff to get better bonuses, and also charge customer nearly $1 million to provide IT support for faults arising from ancient hardware. During my conversation with the school district, I shared examples of state governments in the Northeast buying Chromebooks and saving money while future-proofing the hardware. My job was to get best quote to customer and develop trust to sign a 5 or 10-year contract. So this school district bought Chromebooks, which were 40% cheaper and had less than 20% of the previously quoted IT support cost. As a result, sales team lost a few $1,000s in bonus, but we brought this customer with us for a 5-year contract. The sales director got pissed as I was working on small contracts at a slow pace and reprimanded me in front of our manager. The manager did not care and did not defend me and asked, "Why don't you follow what the sales director says and stop fussing over small contracts?" I said small contracts turn into big ones, hence I should pay attention to them as well. Mistakes in small contracts could harm us if the contract becomes big. I am struggling at work because you gave me the job of 3 or 4 people. At this point, he was shouting at me that I don't understand contracts. He has been doing this stuff for 5 years and he makes more money in a month than I do in a year, so I should listen to him and not question him. This was a bit insulting as I live in a shared apartment and am struggling to make ends meet while he drives an expensive luxury car and just goes out on fancy lunches with government employees. I asked the sales director to send an email with a list of suggestions to improve my work. He rudely complied and said, "Can you not even remember what I just said in the meeting?" His email said, "Do not review contracts less than 100K and trust sales team that due diligence has been done." I replied by copying my manager in the email that this could create liability in the future and want him to confirm again that the sales team will do financial and legal compliance themselves for the small contracts, and I need to stop revising small government contracts below 100K with no exceptions unless told otherwise. This was gold. Cue malicious compliance. Instead of 2 hours, I spent 10 minutes on small contracts and voila, backlog cleared and I am home by 6:30 p.m. Now, a contract worth 10K comes through. I found some issues with this contract since it said that we offer 30% rebates to our software providers. This was something we stopped doing 5 years ago, and now we just offer software providers a 5 to 10% rebate on contracts. Also, I knew the government client recently got a massive budget and was on a spending spree, part of my job. There is a high chance that this 10K customer will become $100, and the 30% rebate means we have to give $30 on top of the usual cost. But I remembered what the sales director said. Why don't you follow what the sales director says and stop fussing over small contracts? So 10 minutes later, I email, no issues detected based on compliance check by the sales team. As I mentioned, government contracts are slow. No one cared, so I raised the 30% rebate issue since it was just a 10K customer. 10 months later, the state government customer said they want to work with us and get at least the same terms or better terms for a new $50 million contract. This was the largest contract in our company's history. The sales director happily gave him a handshake deal that we will offer the same or better terms. Government can legally just buy more on their current contract, so the sales director had no issues promising the same terms. Given contract size, everyone from legal, IT and finance gets involved to work on just one contract. For 3 months, everyone worked on one contract. The sales team was giddy that they will get million-dollar bonuses. I don't get a sales bonus to ensure I protect customers and the company. The finance team finishes their review and said the company is going to lose $8 and not make any money. Everyone is shocked. The sales director gave a deal without checking with us, and we cannot go back on something we offer. Changing contract terms is frowned upon by the government, and they have legal contracts stating nothing will change. We are legally obligated to offer the government the same terms for 3 years. The legal team says we need to take a hit on our balance sheet and swallow the losses. The CEO called a big meeting in a fancy conference room with big TV screens, and everyone had to find a scapegoat to take the blame. Every department lead, managers, and people involved in this contract were summoned. The sales leader had to explain to his team why they won't get bonuses on this big contract they spent over 3 months. Finally, legal and finance meet and share their findings. We lost money due to the 30% rebate clause. The sales director goes crazy and blamed me in front of everyone and asked me to pack my stuff in front of 30 people. Follows by saying, I am terrible at my job despite 100% customer satisfaction. I calmly opened my laptop and connected the display cable and opened Outlook while displaying his email on 3 big TV screens stating that I should stop reviewing small contracts. While all 30 people read the email with a faint smile, I await the sales director's reaction. He goes into rage mode claiming I misunderstood his email and am terrible at my job. Then I scroll down where he ignored my warning regarding potential liability to the company, and his response explicitly asked me to ignore that. His face turned white when he realized he fucked up. He then blabbered, trying to find some other scapegoat making racist tirades against our IT consultants in Vietnam, and just lost it. Aftermath. I was told to spend 2 to 3 hours on each contract, and the company eventually figured out that it is cheaper for them to hire 20 people like me and pay us 70Ks every year than to take big losses on their contracts. Our team has 40 members now, still less than 50, but enough to offset the contract volume. Because of the losses, sales director had to pay back his previous year's bonus, as he had a clawback clause with the company, i.e., if you screw up, you need to pay us. The sales director had to pay nearly 300K and was fired from his job. Present day. He then sued our company for wrongful termination, and we just heard today that he lost the case and now owes us another 200K legal fee. Now he owes over $500,000 to our company. TL, DR, company fired people, and the sales director abuses me when I cannot do the job of 3 people. He ignored my warning that mistakes in small contracts could cause millions in losses to the company. He ended up causing the company millions in losses and gets fired from his job, tried to sue the company, and now owes over $500,000 to our company. End of TL. DR. Update 1. A lot of people may ask, why am I still doing this job which pays less than state wages, and I might be able to make more in other companies? I help government customers buy good stuff from many hardware and software companies so they don't overpay or rely on one big company. I feel proud when I can save tax dollars and help customers. During COVID, a lot of state governments went remote, i.e., local meetings on Zoom, and keeping the government running while working from home. There was a budget freeze due to COVID, the economy shutting down, and since COVID relief bill was months away. This was a time when the sales team had helpless government customers willing to sign anything just to get remote hardware and software. I saw this as extortion, and despite being an introvert who lacks initiative to get promoted, I was able to convince the CEO to offer free 60-day trials of expensive hardware and just charge setup and transportation fees. This was a big risk, but we brought an insurance company to offset any damages. I convinced the CEO that this is the time for us to show we are partners with the government, and it was an emergency. The sales team was mad for a month, then realized that all those free customers were calling us for paid contracts over companies that are 10x our size, that would usually win contracts by lobbying or taking government decision makers to expensive lunch or something like Super Bowl tickets. I legally cannot disclose the exact government entity by name, but can vaguely say that some entities in the state government of New York and the state government of Florida were both using this trial program during the first wave of COVID. I might change jobs soon, since we got a 3% salary hike in the current market, while the company has nearly doubled its revenue in a few years. Update 2. I just remembered another story that made sales leaders hate me even more. This is during the COVID wave when we all were working from home and I was getting used to Zoom. We had a telecom contract with the state government during COVID, and everyone joined a Zoom call to discuss the contract. The sales team was increasing this customer's telecom bills from $60K a month to $300K a month. I objected that increased calls during COVID are not high enough to justify such a big price hike, and we should increase the bill to $100K a month. This was enough to cover the cost and even improve profit margin percent. But the sales team started laughing and saying, if the customer can pay more and is ready to pay more, why am I being so vocal? Leadership asked me to shut my mouth and proceeded with a $300K contract. So I started working on other stuff and minimized the Zoom app. I don't end Zoom calls myself, as the meeting admin ends it. Everyone said, "Bye, nice meeting you all," and I naively assumed the call ended. I vented my frustration by saying, these salespeople are like wolves when the country is going through shitty times. A co-worker sent a chat message a few minutes later that everyone heard what I just said. No one complained or confronted me, but this offended them. Also wanted to add, all sales team members are not like this. Almost all the new sales reps are eager to learn from everyone and not pushing stuff, but talking to customers. However, new sales reps mostly handle small or low priority contracts. Any big contract gets automatically transferred to sales leadership. Basically, it is not a revenge story. The story reminds us not to ignore even a minor detail when dealing with cash. A small mistake cost the company $8 million USD. By the way, when the director tried to put the blame on OP, he avoided it by showing the director's email, which resulted in the director losing his job. The next story is from Wreck to Your Shit. Partner with limited authority over management. Playing from workers' dugout though. I had recently partnered with a small production facility in my area. Our contract was based on capital investment, along with designing, implementing new automation processes. 2YR Outlook finished in 8Mo. Was a typical small production facility comprised of 50 production workers through 2 shifts of 12 hours that ran 2 days on then 3 days off. Also had 2 production supervisors for each shift and 1 maintenance supervisor for each shift. The people and their attitude is ultimately what led to my decision to be more than an outside contractor for this company until I worked the night shift for a week due to shutdowns that needed to occur to implement certain line upgrades. This is where I met him. We will call him Richard Head. Richard seemed like a nice guy in our first few encounters, and then I heard him in his element directing his maintenance crew at night over the radio. He would belittle this group of guys who were there to do a set task list every night for whatever machinery they were doing preventative maintenance on, unless something broke on the line, which would require attention first, obviously. I have never heard grown men spoken to like this, and never heard any nasty remarks back, or defending themselves. He would call them stupid on the radio if they were having trouble troubleshooting a problem, call some fat and lazy, called one black guy the tas. The guy had been there since they opened the doors, and to be honest, made me want to rescind any commitment I have ever made to this company. When I escalated this up to the plant manager, he assured me that it was friendly banter, and they rarely had complaints against him. True, because anyone who ever did so in confidence of anonymity was always outed and then singled out until they were terminated by him. Since no one was going to listen to me, I decided to do my due diligence and started to document everything I heard on the radio with a date, time, witnesses to the treatment, and what rights the individual was having violated due to our state and federal outlines. I made this spreadsheet my entire time in the shift, documenting every personal account I witnessed as well. Harassment is a major problem with industry work, but the one that I have learned is the company killer is retaliation. If you can prove that, then they stand no chance. I saw him one night tearing down this 50-year-old man who requested 2 days off to the point I wanted to lose my cool, but knew it would ruin all the information I was gathering. Days off were because his nephew was just in a car accident 2 days prior and had to have multiple reconstructive surgeries scheduled. I knew that now was the time to move on everything. I rounded up all the maintenance guys and shared all my documentation with them. They didn't realize the importance of this information like I had. They just said, nothing will change. Nothing changed because no one treats an issue as an issue if you come with incorrect, non-detailed information. The fact that he used the radio so much was a godsend that they didn't see as well. When he spoke this way to people, he must not have ever realized that there are other supervisors on shift, and that they unintentionally became the strongest witness in the cases, especially when you have some audio recordings verifying the accounts. They have no choice but to acknowledge what they have heard. Each worker took their logs, and even though I have a capital time investment in this facility, I urged them at a minimum to petition to have this man removed or to threaten legal action. Once they coordinated a day to expose all this, it was like watching a sports movie when the underdogs take the championship and get the girl at the same time. Not only did the man finally get fired, but the entire atmosphere around the place changed more than I could imagine. Older machines ran the best they have ever run in my time there, and people loved coming to work again. They also put a placard on my door for when I came in about a week later. It said, "Mo one boss," but the boss was crossed out, and hand engraved under it was the word "badass." I obviously removed it from my door, but I put it in my home office, and is probably the best thing I have ever received from a facility. OP did a wonderful job by documenting verbally abusive behavior of the supervisor, Richard Head, towards the maintenance team and showing it to the higher authorities. This finally led to his removal. This incident turned OP into a hero. Bye-bye for now. Let's see you tomorrow.